What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by rock band Cobra Starship. Basically, this project is called Viva la Cobra, and it came out in the fall of 2007. So the thing about this particular project is this is produced by Fall Out Boy's Patrick Stump and pitches like that. So it's a pretty good concept, kind of get that in particular. Just like from what I remember, Fall Out Boy also found Panic at the Disco, which is a pretty dope pitch. So this is another few folks here that happen to hit pretty well. And I reviewed a number of Cobra Starship projects, particularly their 2009 and 2011 albums, which had some of their bigger hit singles on there as far as that pitch can happen. This particular one, Viva la Cobra, is a lot more skeletal as far as that pitch can happen. They kind of help, this particular band helped meld and mold the particular sound that popped up on MySpace with rock music as far as that pitch can happen between folks like the Millionaires and Broken Side and some of those type folks, Hollywood Undead, some of those type folks, the EDM kind of dance rock type sound. Attack, some of those type folks, and other ones like Breathe Carolina, some of those type folks in particular. I'd have to say the Medic Droid. Definitely pretty quality punk album here. I'd have to say it's kind of an underrated type one. I would have to say the concept behind it. Initially, when I was listening to this, I thought I was going to give it a more poor score than I did, but it has like a very lambent and lazy kind of appeal towards it that just kind of hits later on. I feel like the production fare, the reason why I felt that way is just because the concept of the particular albums from 2009 and 2011 just had the bigger hit singles and just more immediate type production fare. When you think of songs by Cobra Starship, like The Way, like songs like You Make Me Feel and Middle Finger, some of those type ones, it just has a little bit more of like a glissy and kind of more in your face type electronica type sound that just was more immediate. And I don't remember Hot Mess as much from 2009, but I know that had like a top 10 single as well that did pretty glitzily. It's a pretty glitzy song that did pretty well. So it's this kind of concept. This is more kind of on the drawing board, kind of in the works type sound that they were fleshing out around that particular time. Didn't really have any charting singles. This hit number 80 on the Billboard 200 when it came out, which is about at the halfway point as far as that pitch can goes along with it. Just kind of says it sold more than 40,000 copies, which is pretty modest just within that relative pitch. But I would have to say it's a good concept just because this is one of the ground layers and one of the this is some train tracks that were kind of laid for like the EDM type sound that would kind of happen between like 2000, late 2008, 2009 and forward. I'd say this is one of the initial type ones. So I appreciate the concept. This is going to get a pretty rave score here. It's not quite going to get a 10 out of 10, but it's definitely going to get pretty close. It has 11 songs in here, which is a pretty good pitch. Had 3 singles. Just talking about that, just being able to say. Apparently, this particular cab gave support to had a hit single that was on MySpace. That was a response to Gwen Stefani's Hollaback Girl, which is Hollaback Boy on MySpace. Too bad that particular song didn't make it on this particular project, but I'd have to say those are sorts of moments that kind of happened on MySpace that just had a pretty good pitch, I'd have to say. But definitely, I feel like some of that relatively kind of sleazy sludge that kind of particularly happens with those particular days when you think of folks like Broken Side from 2008 with a little bit of Fall Out Boy from 2008 with kind of some mixtures of like the Medic Droid and some of those type folks that had to say another popular punk pop type bands like Attack and some of those type ones that had to say in particular. A little bit of the Millionaires, some of those type folks, 303. But definitely say some of that sludge just is really appreciable, and this has a lot of good affability towards it. So it's just a good concept of the thing. I mean, this is good stuff here. It definitely has that low key sludge and just overall after effect of just like in the trenches type appeal, just like some house party type appeal, and just glitzy kind of seedy nightlife as far as that pitch kind of happens. But it just doesn't have like the ravenous kind of single that you're gonna hear like You Make Me Feel or some of the later hits. I'd say, which is just kind of concept. Just a lot. It's more localized. I'd say it's not localized to the sense that it just doesn't have it. It's this kind of concept with casual appeal. It just doesn't have the sharpness that they would craft and manifest later. But yeah, there were 3 singles off this particular project. So first single was Guilty Pleasure. This is a pretty nice one. It's like an electro punk kind of out on the town. It's like an electro punk kind of out on the town bop, I'd have to say in particular. This one definitely gives Fall Out Boy. This particular song definitely gives Fall Out Boy vibes. I'd have to say a pretty good concept for that. And this song has some 2-step dazzle about it. I would definitely feel like just a good foot tapper and early kind of thump to kind of get for just out on the town pitches like that. Just kind of relatively early evening type traverse. I'd have to say just out and about getting some supplies, getting ready to smoke some pitches like that. And it's just a pretty good early bop for this particular band, I'd have to say. Definitely reminds me of some of the pitches. Reminds me of a little bit of Panic at the Disco, just without the flamboyantness. I'd have to say just the concept kind of gets some of this in particular. Just some of that. Definitely some of the social buzz of bands like Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. Just some good kind of restaurant. It's kind of out and about, kind of concrete jungle type marinating as far as that pitch can happen. It's just kind of amidst like the traverse, well, there's just on foot or pitches like that, and it's kind of paying attention to like some restaurant traverse, just going to multiple dance clubs as far as that pitch can go, just being at like a square or something like that as far as that would particularly kind of happen. Just some good concepts. good noise to kind of hear out and about, just getting nachos and pictures like that. The City is at War is a nice second single. This is a pretty good concept here. It's like a syrupy kind of emo MySpace dance glitz of a song. I would definitely have to say it's like a good trendsetter for like 2007. I would feel like, and this is just like a steady nightclub hitter. I would definitely have to suppose. So it's a good enough concept kind of get some of these. This is another one that was kind of sharpening like the. This is another one that was kind of sharpening like the helm as far as like the trends that were getting ready to happen as far as later pitches with like late 2000s, early 2010s dance stepping, dance electronica, and EDM as far as the pitch can happen. Just some good concepts. This kind of one. This one's a little bit more of like a glitzy turn up. This was not as punk oriented, I'd have to say, but it's just a little bit more electronica. Just the sort of stuff that Jeffree Star, some of those type folks would kind of do. Some of that relative pitch. Just I do appreciate the concept of some of these. I mean, a lot of this album, I think you can tell by the album cover, that this is pretty much like a pretty social and casual bop of an album. I'd have to say in particular, a lot of this is just great restaurant and dance club type music, just out and about, just sports bar type fare pitches like that. Some of those type places, just going out and Wingstop, some of those type fares as far as that would kind of happen. Just a good clamor and things like that. Good concepts. This one's just a little bit more electronic and a little bit more pulsating than Guilty Pleasure, I'd say, but they're a good 1-2 punch. Kiss My Sass is another nice one. This one's a little bit more relaxed. It's not like a soft song. It's just kind of the concept. This one's not quite as electric, not quite as pounding as Guilty Pleasure, not quite as riff heavy as Guilty Pleasure, but also not quite as electronica and quite as much of like a dance craze as The City is at War. Kiss My Sass is definitely like some social ruminating pizzazz that had to say in particular. And what I mean by that is just ruminating, but not being by yourself while you ruminate as far as the pitching goes, whether you're just smoking and zoning out or just kind of having relative, just this mid-paced conversation pitches like that. Just the concept of just ambient type disco type, just kind of ambient type feels. I'd have to say just vibing as far as that pitching goes. This is like some ambient disco buzz. I would definitely feel like this is just an easy house party noise for like some sharp night crazes, I'd have to say. Pretty good concept for that. This relatively winds up having the appeal. Some of these in particular, I'd have to say, just has an excellent type. It's an excellent overall type appeal. I don't know full blown the reception about Cobra Starship, but folks would say that their earlier days were better. But I do see the appeal of this particular album as far as that pitching goes, even if it doesn't have like the mammoth kind of radio appeal of like a song like You Make Me Feel or Middle Finger, some of those type ones, or some of the ones off Hot Mess. I would definitely have to say it is a pretty good concept to get some of these in particular. It's just like the overall electricity as to how some of these would kind of happen. The thing about this particular band is they knew the direction they were trying to get to with this particular project. It's just kind of the concept. It's a little bit kind of sketchy and just kind of the atmosphere of more of like drawing board type tactics as far as doing it. But I think they were one of the shapeshifters. They were definitely one of the shapeshifters of a sound where this was just kind of in the early stages. And they were even attempting this particular type sound back in 2006, I'd say. So the concept behind some of the stuff that would manifest and completely be a hybrid in like 2011, 2012, some of those type pitches. Even folks like Pitbull and David Guetta, some of those type folks kind of cashing in on some of that type sound later on. I'd have to say it's just a good concept that some of this punk dance type stuff really worked pretty well. Jeffree Star type sound, MySpace, Hot Topic type sound. This was really good appeal. Some good concepts, but so yeah. So basically, I'm reviewing the 11 song edition. There's the actual 13 song edition, which has Three Times the Lady, which is a Commodore's cover, which I didn't get to, which I imagine would probably be pretty dope to kind of hear, especially in like a dance electronica type sound. I'd have to say it'd be a pretty good concept. Then there's like a Spanish version of Guilty Pleasure, I'd have to say in particular, which would be a good concept for that. But that's just kind of the thing. There's some extra type songs that would be on iTunes. It's a good enough pitch to kind of get some of those to seek those out. But I'd have to say out of the 11 song edition that's on Spotify, I wound up recommending 9 songs. The only 2 songs I don't recommend on here would just be The World Has Its Shine and then Pleasure Island, I'd have to say. To talk about both those are just kind of dreary, just kind of just ambient type ones that just didn't really have the appeal as full blown. I'd have to say just a little bit more beleaguered type ones, or just a little bit more taken aback, this kind of standard fare, just day commerce, just appreciating like it's more appreciating summer and just the kickback and just not really too much kind of seemingly just relative like relaxers that just didn't really have the appeal of the relaxation kind of aspect of having like this electricity towards it. I think I would definitely say Pleasure Island was just like a worse version of trying to do this sort of vibe that Angie kind of pulled off, which Angie was definitely one of the best songs on this particular album, but Pleasure Island just didn't stand up to that one. And I just kind of felt like The World Has Its Shine just didn't really have the appeal. This is kind of a beleaguered and just kind of more mild type one that just didn't really have the appeal. That just didn't have the appeal. So talk about some of these. Speaking to Angie, this is, like I was saying, it's one of the best songs on here in terms of like the production type fare, the instrumentation. This really has an affable type one. Reminds me of like a Red Hot Chili Pepper. Reminds me of like a Red Hot Chili Peppers type riff. It's real summery and breezy type one. It's like a groovy and breezy kind of social stepper. I would definitely feel like It's just a charming kind of out and about for some noise excitement, I would definitely have to say. And this just reminds me of like this particular song, Social Snap, reminds me of like Maroon 5, just Adam Levine and like his heyday as far as some of those pitches between songs like Moves Like Jagger. Despite the fact that this song came out 3 years before that particular, or 3.5 years before that particular song, I still say it's a pretty good concept for that. So once again, some good restaurant type buzz and dance club type buzz, kind of get just out and about and just kind of have some good social stepping. Another one within that relative appeal are My Moves Are All White. White Hot, that is. It's a pretty good concept for that. It's like a glitzy kind of dance pounder, I would have to say. It's like a good pairing with like The City Is at War, I would have to say in particular. And this is just like a skeletal bop of like a later song that they would craft. So it's a good concept for that. I just look after it. A lot of these dance type songs, I mean, these are some good ones on here, but I do feel like their later albums just completely topple this particular album as far as that pitch goes. These are just, I mean, maybe the budget was lower. It's not like it's noticeable that the budget is lower. These are some good bops on here in terms of like the instrumentation, what they were trying to work with. But it's just kind of concept that they definitely honed this. They definitely honed this particular sound and capitalized on it a lot later. I just feel like the appeal of like some of their later singles that wound up charting just really had a better aspect. But this is just kind of the skeletal type versions. Some of that just kind of more rough around the edges. But I do appreciate the concept of like some of these type ones on here. Kiss My Sass, The City Is at War, My Moves Are White, some of those type ones, even Angie, some of those type ones in particular. And another one that would be like that with some relative dance pitch about it would be Damn You Look Good and I'm Drunk. So speaking of that one, Damn You Look Good and I'm Drunk, which is also subtitle Scandalous. This is like a nice evening Kickstarter and venue clamor, I'd have to say in particular. And this is like a good buzz song and kind of motion, I'd have to say. So it's good enough. Yeah, Damn You Look Good and I'm Drunk is definitely a nice dapper type one to kind of get. Just a nice Kickstarter to kind of have in particular. Decent. Damn You Look Good and I'm Drunk is like some decent kind of house party commotion as far as that pitch can have. It's just a good Kickstarter to kind of get within that sense when the like good Kickstarter kind of get within that sense when like the hard liquor shows up and the lady starts showing up as far as that pitch can have. Just some good buzz kind of sound. Definitely a good venue commotion despite the fact that this is not a single. It's just a real nice one to kind of have for like some white noise and just background music and just good unwind as far as that pitching goes. It's some good buzz noise. There's a number of these songs on here, I'd have to say. A lot of these, I do feel like most of this particular album, there are some Travers songs on here to get to that. Just to kind of say there's a number, just within this brief 11-song album, there's a number of songs that just have some good commotion just amidst like a house party or night venue or dance club, some of those have pitches or even restaurant. A lot of social, just overall the social commotion of this project is pretty high. There are some songs on here like Prostitution is the World's Oldest Profession with the subtitle And I, Dear Madam, Am a Professional. I like the pitch that they got some of these lengthier song titles from like Fall Out Boy as far as that pitch can happen. But this is like a hazy kind of late day commute of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's like a good unwind from like a work shift glaze, I would have to say. And it's just an overall kind of just ditch the work shift, get ready to get tore up. I mean, this one's not quite a 0 to 60 with ditching the work shift. It's just kind of the concept of just getting done with the work shift, just kind of having those car drivers type moments of just getting ready to get excited, some pitches like that as far as I particularly kind of have and pick up some drive-through, just pick up some drive-through, some pitches like that, just kind of enjoy the commotion as far as that would particularly kind of happen, just looking after the affability behind it. There's at least one other song that's like that on here. Should be One Day Robots Will Cry. It's another nice one. This is an earlier, this one's kind of tossed in with the singles, which is a pretty good pitch at the beginning of the album. Do appreciate that. It's like a pace of kind of late day commotion, I'd have to say. It's like a late work shift and kind of Aaron's Travers gem, I would have to say in particular. And this is just like some catchy kind of dredge. I just would have to say this one a little bit more so than like Prostitution is the World's Oldest Profession. I'd have to say this is a particular type one that may still have like some moments left of just getting some of that particularly kind of done. This task wrapping up as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, just getting some errands pitches like that kind of done, getting those groceries, cell phone bills being paid, some of that type fare as far as that particular kind of happens, electric bill, some of that type fare. It's a good concept kind of get within that, but the thing about this particular album is it does it with the relative snap of just kind of having the commotion. When punk albums kind of have some of that more makeshift type fare, it just kind of has the affability. It just kind of does it in like a more manic sense that had the same particular, which is dope enough type fare. Punk musicians just kind of do like that makeshift type glaze just within the workshop sense in a more manic and just kind of fidgety type fare, which I appreciate the concept. It's just a little bit more spastic, I'd have to say, but it's just a good enough type pitch to kind of get some of these moments kind of in particular. Just good enough to kind of get some of these moments, I'd have to say. Just in between, just the concept of being relative blue collar, just the, I mean, for the most part, it's kind of post workshop, but there are some moments just amidst some of that, just the concept of just more of like past Wednesday, I'd have to say, not so much Monday through Wednesday type music, but just the concept of like Wednesday evening, the last pitches, so just getting some tasks wrapped up. Thursday, it's definitely some good Thursday music if you do have work commotion pitches like that particular day. I mean, it's definitely Friday, Saturday type music, but with pretty much, let's say a good extra couple days to throw in there would be like Wednesday night, just got done with things, the last moments of that, and then like Thursday, kind of have for some of those type pitches that just getting towards like more adamant kind of turn up. But this works pretty well, I would have to say. And then Smile for the Paparazzi is a pretty nice one. This is like a nice evening buzzer, I would have to say in particular. This one ignites the mood and turn up, I would definitely say, pretty quickly as far as that pitch would kind of happen. This is just like a good dance and frat kind of commotion, I would say. This one just has some commotion about it. This is just a light lick type one to kind of get here. This is just kind of like a mild, nice mid-pace type tempo type one. Not as crazy as some of these ones on here, like some of the singles like Guilty Pleasure and The Seas at War, or it really has the electric out. It really has the electric compellingness of Kiss My Sass, but it is like a nice buzz type song to kind of get within that relative sense. It ignites the mood, I would definitely say. It's a good concept, definitely for some good restaurant type music, but just like that. And then I don't remember if I talked about the song My Moves or what. I kind of feel like I did. Yeah, the particular concept about this album, so me recommending 9 songs out of 11 on this particular album, I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 9.5 out of 10. I'd have to say pretty much the concept of basically only not recommending 2 songs out of 11. That's pretty damn near a classic, right on the cusp of it, really. I'd have to say, just within that relative pitch, I'd have to say. Yes, it's a little bit short of a project, but I do appreciate the appeal behind this. It's definitely pretty revolutionary. I'd say it was a big deal around that particular time, ahead of the times for 2007. The sort of stuff that would happen just 3, 4, 5 years later, as far as that pitch happens. I don't know. I don't know what really happened to Cobra Starship and why they didn't put out an album in 2013 or 2015. Some of those type pitches, because they were doing those albums every other year, as far as that pitch kind of went. It's really capitalized on a high. I really feel like You Make Me Feel is like a real high charting song. Really got them a lot of appeal and probably like a worldwide tour, some pitches like that, I'd have to say, but they just never capitalized past that. A lot of those particular bands like Cobra Starship and LMFAO just kind of, a lot of those particular bands like Cobra Starship and LMFAO just kind of disappeared after 2011, 2012, which is too bad. But I look after it, the social score is going to get a 10 out of 10 because I feel like the appeal behind this is relatively high. I feel like the pitch behind it, I would almost say that it could get like a 9.75 social, just because the concept of these, because these particular songs don't really have like a casual hit that's just all over the radio, I'd have to say. But this is kind of the concept, the affability behind this. This has a lot of commercial snap. This has like a lot of good casual snap about it, just despite the fact that it doesn't have like a mainstream kind of staple on the radio. A lot of this is just ready to go for like social appeal pitches like that, restaurants, dance clubs, raves, nightclubs, some pitches like that. Just good affability, house party type pitch as far as that particular one goes. Just a lot of good social essence in this pitches like that. It's very much like a very social aspected kind of project, similar to like the stuff that Panic at the Disco was doing in 2005 with their A Fever You Can't Sweat Out album, and also like the Vices and Virtues album, I'd have to say, and Fall Out Boy from like their 2000s era as far as that pitch goes. So this is like a pop punk classic, I'd have to say. Just real good appeal with that. Just real has an affable aesthetic and pitches like that. Just an overall appealing type project that just has a lot of variety, charm, and just overall gloss and glamour. So I'd say just overall appealing. So in terms of the future, like once again, Cobra Starship has disappeared since like late 2011 as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. It's kind of an unfortunate type thing to get within that aspect that I have to say. I would definitely like for them to kind of put out more music. They have at least put out singles back in the day, and by back in the day, I mean like 2021 as far as that pitch kind of happens, but hopefully we'll get some more. This is a very impactful type project, social snap just all over the place that I'd say, real impactful, just dance rock, dance electronic, and EDM type smash hit of a project that I'd say I do recommend it quite a bit, despite the fact that it doesn't have like a casual hit single, but it is a good concept kind of see some of this just in like its earlier stages and more skeletal type fare.